Let me welcome all of you to Chat with Matt. Our very special guest today is Jodi Stevens, family friend, Broadway actress. I don't know which comes first in her bio, probably friend of Matt.
Probably.
But Jodi's going to be speaking to us about her career, and all of us are but actors on a stage, as you know. So she's going to be helping us with that. We're going to have a delightful conversation. We've already done a little preliminary work on what we're going to talk about. So with no further ado, my experience has always been that people who introduce me always botch it. So I'm going to let Jodi introduce herself to you and tell you about her journey, how she got to where she is today. So Jodi, the stage is all yours.
Wow. Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here and to meet with all of you. I think this is such a unique and interesting time in the world, and that we all get to collect this way, I think is quite special. So I'm Jodi Stevens. I'm an Broadway and television actress. I live out here in Fairfield County, Connecticut. I am a current teacher of theater and voice and speech. I teach privately. I teach at schools and universities. I also do a lot of theater and cabaret performances as well in the area. And I'm a child advocate, and as well as a speech and vocal teacher, and a leader in my own community as far as taking care of underprivileged kids and bringing them to the stage and helping them find their own unique voice through authentic behavior and finding your own true authentic selves through theater and voice and singing. And I have found in my world, as I started off as a speech and debate champion back in college, and it sort of opened up the doors to not just being an actor on stage, but also to be a leader in things that you are passionate and advocate for. So I am here today to offer my expertise in my field to help you in your communication skills and how you can be the most effective leaders in your industries. And what I have found through all the formulas of speech and how to communicate effectively through charts and science, and what I have distilled from all of this, what effective leadership comes down to is a human connection.
I agree with that, Jodi.
I think that we also, interestingly enough, in this environment on Zoom and in social media now, although we seem to be disconnected in our social distancing lives, there is truly an intimate connection that's happening between all of us and can continue to happen between all of us in this dynamic environment that we're currently living in. And God bless you all, and I hope you're all healthy and safe.
Yeah. So, we're going to talk about just present. Everybody's presenting on Zoom now, and it's kind of a different thing. There's certain elements of it that are unique to Zoom. When we were in a meeting, we could hide a little bit, kind of duck behind someone sitting next to us. But now we're all in the camera, and we never know who's looking at us.
That's true.
I'm sure you, an actor or an actress, experiences that on stage, where they may not be speaking at the moment, but they still have to be there.
Yes.
Give us some advice on that.
That's a wonderful, wonderful observation. It's true. In the theater, what we have is called a fourth wall. The fourth wall, it's almost as if you're sitting and watching a television set, and you see all the action happening in the television set, and that television screen is indeed a fourth wall. So there's a distance there. And the people in the television screen it's a television screen, so it's different, but on the stage, we use that same kind of approach with a fourth wall. So yes, you're there as an audience member observing, but we are in our own world. And it's how we shape that world and cultivate that world that keeps us in our fourth wall. And we don't break that fourth wall so that we can stay completely committed to our circumstances and our storytelling and the things that we need to do to get what we want. So you might have heard a fourth wall being referred to as put on the blinders and just stay focused. Well, yes, that's a lot easier said than done. But if you notice, when someone's wearing blinders, they can't see what's going on the sides. And to be an effective leader, you need to be able to take the temperature of the room in all aspects of the work that you're doing.
Uh-huh. So I've never heard of the fourth wall.
It's a wonderful
It's a great concept.
it's a great concept. It's a great visualization. And for me, and what I like to teach a lot of my singers and voice students is that when you're working with the fourth wall, you can't go wrong in any aspect of what you're doing. When you have your fourth wall and you're in your box and you are truly authentic to the work that you are presenting, you can make no mistakes. As I'll tell some of my students, as long as you're in character, you can't make any mistakes. As long as you're in your world and focused on what it is you need and how it is you need to get what you want, you can't make any mistakes if you're currently and truly really present in the room and being able to move with the dynamics in the room. Because there are always the unknowns that come out at you. And we have to deal with those in the immediacy.
Without stepping out of character.
Exactly.
You have to be careful not to do that. Peggy, who is in the play with the?
We saw Lily Tomlin.
Lily Tomlin. A fly jumped into her mouth while she was performing.
And so she actually stopped.
She said,
care of it.
I have to back. She says, I have to take a drink of water and I have to back up. You won't like this scene unless I back up a few steps. And she did. And then she stepped right back behind the fourth wall, which I had never heard. I've never heard that phrase before, but that's so cool.
So here's what's interesting about celebrities and stardom. When you're a celebrity, you can do stuff like that. You can break the fourth wall. That's what we call breaking the fourth wall. Right. Step out of your character completely and go, oh my God, I just screwed up. Let me do that again. Bette Midler, perfect example, did that in Hello, Dolly all the time. She'd forget her lines all the time and go back. But she's a celebrity and a star and known for that kind of personality as Lily Tomlin is. So that is so forgivable. But many of you don't. I'm not a famous actor. I am a working actor. Okay. And so when I'm famous in some circles, but truly,
here in Weston, you're famous.
You're famous with us.
I haven't been on Broadway in some time because I'm here raising my family and teaching. And it's wonderful to be able to do that because I wouldn't change it for the world. But who knows what Broadway's going to be in the near future. So I'm very happy right where I am. But
that's good.
Yeah, so when you're a celebrity, you can step outside like that. But if somebody like me was in the middle of a show and you came to see this show and I forgot my lines and I went, oh my God, I have to go back and do that again. Some of you might want your money back because You're not coming to see the celebrity. You're coming to see the work. You see?
Yeah. So one of the things I say is, I have a sailboat. So one of the things I wrote an article about in my newsletter is that the captain can show no fear.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he goes crazy, everyone on the crew is going to go crazy. So you have to act a little bit. And I think leaders, when they're speaking to their audience, especially in these difficult times, they have to put on a face and they have to maintain it.
Yeah. Well, I call that being a visionary, really, when you have to put on that brave face and lead. And sometimes you're leading into the unknown, but...
Well, you can't tell everybody else that.
Exactly. So you need to do your homework. Homework, homework, homework so that you are pliable and you can bend like a reed in the wind when things maybe go off center a little bit. Like using the boat analogy, when you hit rough waters, you've got to have the foundation so strong that you're not going to fall over. And so doing your homework and being prepared is one of the key components to solid leadership. You need to know the people that you're working with. You need to know what your role is in the room. Are you the leader? Are you the one who's making all the decisions? Are you having to work as a team, or in theater, we'll call it as an ensemble member? So as an ensemble member, we have to give and take what our role is and find out what our role is in this ensemble so that we can keep the boat afloat and that we can ebb and flow with the ever-changing landscape of our corporate world and economies.
Yeah. I suppose from time to time, things go wrong on stage and you have to just play through it.
Yes, yes. I'll quickly tell a story. When I was starring in the Broadway show Jekyll and Hyde. And in Jekyll and Hyde, Dr. Jekyll goes into his lab and he injects himself and he turns into Hyde and he goes into this huge number. The lab table was coming down from the flies and it would come all the way down. It was a very dramatic, like the helicopter in Miss Saigon or the chandelier in Phantom of the Opera. So the lab table would come in. Well, the lab table stopped midair. And there's Dr. Jekyll looking up at his lab table, not able to get the instruments he needed to create the scientific experiment that he injects himself and turns into Hyde, which helps the play keep going. So this actor was forced to improvise. But because he's so prepared and he's so well rehearsed, he was able to do the whole thing with the lab table on top, improvising and creating the world all around him without even using the lab table. So then we have to use the materials that we're given. But when you are that prepared and you have done your homework, you have the flexibility to work within the scope that things are brought to you.
Yeah, we had a Navy SEAL on Chat with Matt yesterday, and he said the Navy SEALs do 25% planning, and then 75% is what can go wrong.
Yeah.
And they come up with scenarios for everything that could possibly go wrong.
Yeah.
And oftentimes you run through all of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's being a visionary, you know, really seeing through the trees there. And then through that vision, you know, you really need to cultivate relationships. You know, Matt, I'm talking about how theater corresponds and correlates to work in the corporate world. And in theater, we're forced to break down scripts and stories, very much like in the corporate world, we are forced to break down our script and stories. We need to know who we are. We need to know why we're there. We need to know what we need. We need to discover how to get what we want. We need to take a look ahead and look at the potential conflicts that we may have and how we may navigate those conflicts. And part of planning is the not planning. Like your Navy SEAL said, 25% and 75%. You have to allow that percentage for improvisation or for the unknown component. You know, it's the mysterious percentage that you have to be so schooled in your work that you can go with the flow.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it before, but a play is very much a team effort.
Oh, yes.
There's a whole bunch of people who do, and a lot of high-strung personalities.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah. And we all deal with
It's particularly
those
challenging, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's where
I tell the
knowing,
story from time to time, Jody, that when I was in the advertising business, everyone I was working with on a daily basis was under psychiatric care. So it always made for an interesting day.
well, just a little bit further on that, I had an acting teacher that used to say, if you want to work on your art, you've got to work on your life. Because
Okay.
the only way to really connect to all of those different kinds of emotions and to play them in a healthy way, if you're a psychotic killer or a depressed, suicidal parent, you have to be able to get yourself back to your core authentic self. So they say that,
Oh boy, so you have yet another layer. You have all the things that you're doing and you're responsible for, and you also have the mix of personalities on the stage.
well, that's where I actually think that acting classes come in very valuable and very handy for corporate executives,
Sure.
because being an actor, and being in acting class, you're working a muscle of always changing your tactics to get what you want. And when you're changing your tactics to get what you want, you certainly don't want to offend, or you don't want to alienate. You don't want to put anybody down. You don't want to be exclusive. You want to be inclusive, because ultimately you need something from these people. So we are the ones that
Yeah.
have to change to get what we want. So if I'm not reaching you, we need to stop looking at ourselves and start looking at the other person, putting the attention on the opposite person, on the thing we need. How do we get what we need? How do I get Matt Budd to give me what I need? Do you know? So you have to continually change your tactics in order to get what you want. And how do you do that? You got to be able to read a room.
Yes,
So
right, right.
going back to work on your art, work on yourself, I'm not saying people need to be in therapy, but what I am saying is you need to connect to who you are, what you like about yourself, what you don't like about yourself, what you think um, your greatest strengths are as a leader. You need to be able to role play that back and forth with somebody to practice, because improvisation in that kind of environment can be very tricky too. So I
Yes.
really love the idea of role playing with these strategic leadership opportunities. And you develop scripts, and we go back and forth, and we create 3 possible scenarios in a session, and we go in every scenario. And you could be working with the belligerent employee, or you may be the employee dealing with a boss and wanting to get a raise, and or you may not. You may have a job of presenting in a room, and you feel that your work makes or breaks in that room. And
Yeah.
so you work and you plan and you prepare and you rehearse, and you've got your script, and you do it and you do it, and you're going and you're going, and there's never any room for anybody to go, but what about if uh so you've alienated yourself from anybody who wants to add anything or question anything in the room, for you to be pliable and breathe and allow breath in there, so that you can move with what the dynamic in the room or the temperature in the room might
I,
be.
I assume actors are very aware that everyone is watching them. I'm not sure that corporate leaders are as aware of that.
There's a balance in there. So that's a tricky thing that you say. So again, I want to get back to doing the homework. So if you're in your character, or if you're in your work,
Mhm.
you're in it. So yeah, actors are aware of people looking at them, but a good actor isn't. Because you become self-involved, even if you
Do you tune out the audience, Jody?
there is an element of tuning out, but what you tune into is an energy and a breath. You can feel the room breathe. You can feel when people are cold. You can feel when people are warm. It's not through the eyes. It's through the senses.
Mm-hmm.
So there's it's a conscious unconsciousness.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense.
And I believe that you need to be aware of your audience enough, but not overly aware. Now, I want to be clear because I don't want there to be any confusion when I say, you know, the fourth wall, you tune out the audience. But then I also say you need a back and forth. You need to put your attention on the other person. So let me be clear about what I'm talking about when I say putting your attention on the other person.
Yes,
I'm
please.
not talking about breaking the fourth wall.
Uh-huh.
I'm talking about that person who is going to help you get what you want is within the fourth wall. That is your scene partner, or that is your boardroom, or that is your boss, or that are the employees that work for you. They're all in the play. They're in
Yeah.
your play.
Okay.
So the focus is on them in your play, not on you.
No, that's good advice. It's, you know, you're when you're doing a presentation, you're on stage and you're working the room and you're trying to be aware of how people are engaging with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it should be a conscious thing.
Like right now, I want to check out the room. I want to see who's here. Hi, everybody. So I wanted to put out some questions to some of you and see what kind of questions you might float out to me. But so what kind are we all from the area? Are we all
No, we're across the United States.
amazing, just amazing. And
Yeah.
so
You know, as Ray King once said, high technology, what'll they think of next? This is all great stuff.
So does anybody have any questions that they wanted to share or wanted to ask?
Well,
Oh, yeah,
while you're
that's a question,
waiting,
so.
there was a question that said on a Zoom interview that this person found that it was hard to concentrate fully during the interview because sometimes the interviewers weren't staying focused on the interview and they asked other kinds of questions and went back and forth. And this person's question was, can you help me deal with this? And he's talking about being on Zoom because he says he could see that they were talking to some people and they were speaking off screen, went on mute and whatever. So what is your advice?
That's a really quality problem that is going to happen. And again, you really, what I said earlier about staying in character and knowing what your needs are and how to try and get what you want and the need to change your tactics. In a Zoom interview, it's a very tricky environment because you're working with somebody who's got a million other things going on. So they are probably halfway onto their next meeting by now when they're talking to you or planning ahead for what's perhaps coming. So there's the importance of stillness in your interview and in your Zoom meeting. There's a couple of things. First of all, everybody who's on Zoom, you're aware that you can how to change your speaker view or how to change the view. If you're working with somebody, you can pin him, or it can be both of you. In an interview situation, I almost think it's valuable to have a split screen with you and your interviewer. So you can also monitor your perhaps subtle feedback that you might not realize is coming through. So right now, if you were talking with your interviewer and I am looking at the green dot on my computer, which is lit, that's the camera. As I stare into that green dot, it's like I'm looking directly at all of you, each one of you. I am being completely personal with all of you. I'm not looking at myself. I'm not looking at anything else in the room. It's all about you.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when we lose sight of, now that green dot can space us out too, you know, so we have to be very cognizant of what can happen with that. Another quick tool with talking directly to you in that green camera, when you have a thought or if you have an idea and you need to think about what that idea is, and you may already know the answer, and you want to appear in a very thoughtful way, there's a technique where you might want to look with your eyes off the camera, come up with the idea and bring the idea right back to camera. For instance, I'll just use a commercial I did. There is, my head really hurts. So I use Anacin because Anacin makes everything better. So there's that. Or what might be more authentic to you is, I have a headache. So I take Anacin and I feel better. So there's a moment when my eyes leave the screen to come up with a thought and I bring it right back to you. So it's a technique of engaging your audience and staying very focused and personal with you. The green dot on my screen.
Yeah.
But it's you, it's Matt, it's Mike, it's Chris. I see Roxanne. It's very personal. So I want to just, and then the other comment was, what do you do when they appear not focused on you and they're doing something, I'm listening, you know, something else like that? You just keep going. You just keep going and you smile through it and you enjoy it. You enjoy it. And you come back with a very strong, definitive point where you are expecting perhaps a reaction or response or not expecting the response. But it's a tool to get their focus back to you. It's the hesitation of a pause. They'll get right back to you. But you don't ever want to let them see you be ruffled, because some of that might actually be part of their technique to see how focused you are on what it is that you want.
That makes sense.
I have been in auditions many times where I'm up there singing my heart out and I've got the casting director or producer like this. Thank you, that's enough. What did I do wrong? I did everything right, everything right. So you know what? You could have landed the job the moment you started the audition, the interview. He may already have somebody in mind and you have to change his mind, or he may be thinking about, did he let the dog out before he went to work that day? You really have no idea what's going on in that person's head. All you can be responsible for is you.
Ah, okay. That's good.
I like it.
I happen to find my picture being on Zoom distracting. But on the other hand, I see how I'm reacting, and perhaps I can watch what I'm doing a little bit better. It's feedback you wouldn't have in an in-person interview.
It's true. It's true. I've actually found quite a learning curve, but it's been wonderful, the things I've been able to discover with my speech and voice students on Zoom, because we can really get up close and personal. You know, if somebody has a speech issue or a breathing issue, I know nerves are a big component. And what happens when our nervous system goes into hyper overdrive, we start to lose control of our breath. So sometimes when those things, and I'm sorry if I'm going off topic, if anybody has any other questions regarding breath or anything that, Peggy, if you want to throw my way, I can.
Somebody just was asking, and you might be able to bring that into what you're saying, that they wanted to, any tips you had about basically preparing yourself mentally and physically for a performance. But I think that would be the same thing, preparing yourself mentally and physically for that interview, because an interview really is a performance.
It truly is. And the difference is, though, that in an interview, you're going in and you're being you, completely and 100% you. And are you enough? Yes, you are. Exactly who and the way you are is enough, because there is only one you, and you have gifts that nobody else has, and you have talents that nobody else has. But to get connected to that authentic self, so that that true talent and that true self can come through, is what I would love to see happen for all of you.
No, I think you have to play yourself in an interview.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then you have to also be open and generous and interested in who is interviewing you.
Well, it's about listening, because half of communication, or a lot more than half of communication, is being a good listener. And listener could be, as you said, watching those visual cues. That's listening as well. What do you have to say about listening?
What? No, I'm kidding.
I like that.
Nicely done,
So
Jodi.
I think we all can always listen more fully. You know, oftentimes we hear what we want to hear, and when we're in an interview environment, you are in an environment where you are seeking approval, you are seeking acceptance. So you're seeking approval and you're seeking acceptance. So when, sorry, my student just pinged in. So we're seeking acceptance. And so, I'm sorry, give me the question one more time. A notification came in that was distracting to me. Please
I think
tell
we
me.
were just talking about listening. That was really what that question was. But to build on to that, somebody else was asking about what can you do? We were talking about looking at yourself. They said, what are your tips and techniques to help you focus? Because this person said she tends to look at herself, and then she feels that obviously she's losing that connection because she's not looking directly in the camera. What is your advice to help people not look at themselves? Because we're not used to seeing ourselves.
Well, I have two thoughts. I just want to circle back to the listening component for a
Okay.
moment, because it's very important when you're listening. You're not just listening with your eyes. You're not just listening with your ears. You have to listen with your whole self. And you really want to put some of your trajectory, what you want, on hold for a moment, to really take in what the other person is saying, because so much is going to affect you. You want to be affected by the other person on the other side of the desk. You want to develop a human connection with somebody on the other side of the desk. That is where you want to connect to something that is similar within you. Maybe there is something that is very happy about this person, or something that has an energy about it that you can't quite put your finger on, but there's something going on there. I don't mean to get woo woo. I don't. So take it with a grain of salt. But I believe that it's so important that we take into consideration, we have no idea what is going on with the other person on the other side of the desk, where the spirit meets the bone. And all we can do is approach these people with kindness, respect, and an open heart, because that's where the listening comes into. It's when you're fully present in the room. So how also can you stay focused without looking at yourself?
Yeah.
So get yourself ready for your interview. Do your hair, do your clothing, get yourself organized. Check out your visual on Zoom before the camera goes live. Make sure your lighting is right. Make sure your hair looks the way you like it. And frankly, you can slide your picture off the screen and not even acknowledge yourself. and just pin the other person.
Yeah, that may be the thing to do. Someone had a question about they tend to speak too fast. Any suggestions on how you keep your, sometimes people are just kind of rushing through their presentation.
Right. So, so that all has to do with breath. So when you find yourself rushing through your presentation, this takes practice. This takes a daily practice, frankly, of breath work. And maybe this might be a good way for us to wrap up our session.
Yes.
We'll end with a little breathing technique that I like to do with all of my students. And perhaps I can take you all on a little journey with that breath. It won't take very long. And this is a little tool that you all can take away with you before you're going into any kind of meeting. I love to do this every day. And you can take it as long as you want. The simple breathing technique would be to sit straight in your chair with your feet flat on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So your hands are rested gently in your lap, and you want to close your eyes if you feel so compelled, or you can leave your eyes just open slightly, perhaps staring at the very tip of your nose.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to sort of get an inward look. And you're going to start to breathe just through your nose, in and out, nice and slowly. And we're going to do some counting. I'm going to do some counting. You're going to breathe in through your nose for 4. You're going to hold your breath for 4. You're going to exhale through your nose for 4. You're going to hold your breath for 4. And we're going to do a few cycles of that breath. And you'll see how this calms the nervous system. And you can extend the numbers as you like. You can extend the repetitions as you like. But we're just going to do 3 today. So, comfortable in your seat with your hands in your lap and your eyes closed or gently staring down at the tip of your nose. And we're going to breathe in through your nose, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, and inhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, and 4. And let it go. Finding time for yourself is the most precious gift you can give yourself. And to connect to your breath before any meeting or interview or audition, wherever that might be, is really going to serve you so that you can access your authentic self and share your gifts with others.
I think that's a great way to end this session. Thank you so much for being on Chat with Matt. Everyone, if you have questions for Jodi, you can certainly send them to me and I'll forward them to her.
I will answer all your questions, yes.
And that would be great. This has been just a wonderful thing. I'm going to take over the screen. Jodi, thank you so much.
Thanks, Jodi.
Thank you.
Great.
This has been
You
very
will.
helpful to everybody.
I hope
Stay
so.
healthy.
Thank you.
So Jodi, thank you so much. People are dropping off the call. We've run over a little bit, but I want to thank everybody from for coming and viewing Chat with Matt. We're going to hopefully have more very interesting people, and I hope you'll tune in next time. So I'm going to end the meeting now. And again, thank you everyone, and thank you Jodi for being on Chat with Matt.